Hey everybody, welcome in to a little bit of a bonus episode of the Spartan Shadows podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chris, and I'm joined with Emmett, of course. We're here just to recap a couple of basketball-related topics. Champions Classic was this week. Had some news come out, so we figured we'd jump on, kind of give our reaction to that, preview a little bit more of the basketball stuff, and then kind of just give you a couple breaking news pieces that have came throughout the week, separate from our football preview and recap. So, Emmett, how's it going over there?
It's going pretty good. As we're recording, it's Thursday night, so I'll be heading out. The postage is shipping out to Illinois tomorrow, so pretty excited for that. Just getting ready for the weekend.
Yep. So make sure you guys follow Emmett, of course, if you don't already. He'll be live tweeting from the press box Saturday in Champaign, and yeah. And so we'll just dive right into it. Zach unfortunately couldn't join us tonight, but he will be reviewing this, editing for us, and if there's anything we miss, I'm sure he will remind us. So,
Shout out.
well, shout out Zach for the editing jobs, and then he will be back with us for next week's episode, of course. So, yeah, Champions Classic was this week, and then some news came out today for basketball related topics. We have MSU confirming, or Coach Izzo confirming on his radio show that he is working on setting up a home-and-home with the Duke Blue Devils. Kind of a big-time, obviously, matchup. Duke, MSU, two of the blue bloods of the basketball world. Izzo mentioned, I believe, that Duke was planning on coming here and playing at the Breslin in 2025. And then he didn't give any for sure dates of the other half of the home and home, but I know with the Champions Classic, that's going to be always a little bit up in the air. So they'll get that scheduled, of course, and we'll let you know. But Emmett, thoughts on the home and home with the Blue Devils?
I'm excited. It's going to be one of the premier. It's probably going to be the headliner for the Breslin Center out of conference schedule next season. I know there are quite a few interesting matchups, I believe, that was just shared that of how the 2025 schedule is taking place. Obviously, there's still a few bye games that are going to get announced probably as like football season next year starts. That's usually when like the Florida Atlantic news came out. Was the week before we played Florida Atlantic in football.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of pieces moving, obviously, for a schedule. The way that the Duke in particular works, MSU is scheduled to play Duke in the Champions Classic in 2026, 2 years from now. So the belief is that it is likely going to be 2025 at the Breslin Center, 2026 neutral site for the Champions Classic, and 2027 would probably be at Duke for Cameron Indoor.
Yeah, and the Champions Classic site, I believe, in 2026 is going to be in. I think that was the one that was coming back to Indy, but don't hold me to that. I'm going to double check that real quick while we have it, because they just announced that this week too.
I know 2025, I believe, is Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, so 2025 is going to be MSG, and then 2026 will be Chicago. Yeah, so
maybe the postage will work for Chicago.
Hey, these closer sites are a lot easier to travel to. So Chicago or Indy is a lot better for us to maybe get some boots on the ground in than Atlanta or anything out west. So yeah, that one looks like it'll be Chicago, and then I think 2027 is Indy again, and then 2028 goes back to Atlanta. It looks like so. So yeah, that'll be a big time test for the Spartans at home next year. That strength of schedule is already shaping up to be pretty crazy because I know this year's wasn't as bad as it's been in previous years, but next year it looks like we'll have Kentucky in the Champions Classic. We'll get Duke at home, and then I think we get North Carolina as well. North Carolina on Thanksgiving Day in Florida on that Thanksgiving basketball thing they're doing. So yeah, the four of the five biggest basketball programs in the country playing each other. Well, playing. So that'll be something to watch for next year. Thankfully, we don't have to deal with that this year. Hopefully, the young freshmen that are early on big contributors will get the full year under their belt and have a little bit more seasoned experience before dealing with that gauntlet of a schedule next year. So transitioning, speaking of our freshmen, transitioning into the Champions Classic game that we had this previous Tuesday, a couple days ago in Atlanta. This one was in Atlanta. MSU took on the number one ranked Kansas Jayhawks. We didn't have a time to get our full episode out previewing that, so we wanted to jump on and give you our thoughts on how the game went. Overall, I was fairly okay with how things went. I guess we'll just say okay. Obviously, Kansas was the better team. I had mentioned in some of the thoughts we were talking about for the podcast, if the episode was going to be released in time, that Kansas is my preseason championship pick. I think they're the best team in the country, so I was a little tempered with what I thought MSU could do against them. And they kind of exceeded my expectations. They hung with Kansas, gave them all they could muster. Unfortunately, Kansas did end up with the victory, 77-69. They were able to pull away late. MSU kept it close. They kept it competitive. Actually had several chances to take the lead and pull ahead and probably win the game, but an abysmal night shooting from beyond the arc. No way around that. They were 3 for 24, I believe, from 3. And so that was kind of the nail in the coffin. It was really hard to generate any half-court offense. So that was the kind of the letdown of that. I have a couple takeaways. I'll throw it out to Emmett to give him some thoughts first. But that's kind of how the game shook out. Emmett, what were your thoughts from the Champions Classic?
It was kind of a mix of the good and the bad. Obviously, the bad is more of the ugly with a 3 for 24 mark, which moves the Spartans, I believe, like 12 of 60 on the year from the beyond the arc, which
Not
is an
good.
atrocious number. Speaking of not very good numbers, Jaden Akins and Xavier Booker had arguably the worst games as Spartans, I would say. Booker got benched with 16:59 left in the second half, never returned. Uh, it was just, it was a lot. I know I'm very negative to start my takeaways from this, but it was a lot of good signs because heading into this game, when we were talking about previewing it for a potential early podcast, we had mentioned that we don't have any clue how this game could go. We've played 2 out sub 150 teams in KenPom, so MSU was not very tested. And it could go anywhere from Michigan State maybe squeaking a win by 3 to 5 to Michigan State being laughed off the court and losing by 20 to 25 points. I had thought to myself, if the Spartans, as long as the Spartans don't lose by 30, 35, I feel like there is still reason to hope, reason to believe in this team. And losing by 8, especially drawing even both during the first and second half after bad performances, 8-0 Kansas runs, there is a lot of hope for this team this year. You're not going to have a 0 for 9 mark from the 3-point from Booker and Akins, 2 of the more reliable 3-point shooters, most nights. Quite a few players played really good. I'll touch on them real quick because I know Chris has more in-depth takeaways about them, but Jackson Kohler, 3rd career double-double for him. I feel like he played good. Frankie Fiddler had his best official game as a Spartan, 15 points. The team as a whole, free throw shooting, much improved, 18 for 21 from the line, which after Monmouth and I believe a 66% mark from the line, very much improved, very much needed. Not trying to provide excuses for this team, but I believe it came out that the game ball used for the Champions Classic was a Spalding ball, which is not what the teams usually use. Duke and North Carolina also struggled with the 3-point shot in the game. Kentucky allegedly practiced with the Spalding ball for the last week, and they shot, I believe, 40% from 3. Just going off the top of my head here, I could be wrong. But overall, there is a lot of hope for this team. They might not have the Cassius Winston. They might not have the guy to lead the team in games they shouldn't win or that are going to be close. But this team is not in shambles, like people like to say after after a lack of players from the portal besides Fedor and Simone Zapala. So I do believe that this team is heading in the right direction. Quick shout out to Jace Richardson as well. Chris is going to have more of a takeaway on that too. But I generally believe that this team showed a lot of promise despite how negative I might be sounding after the first loss of the year. What do you have, Chris?
Yeah, you kind of introed it. My three biggest takeaways. I'll start positive since I might kind of went into the negative first. But Jackson Kohler to me emerged. He did it a little bit the game before, but he pretty much solidified, in my opinion, right now that he's the best big man option for the Spartans.
Great.
Offensively, he looked just as good as he has all year. He was able to hit from three. He had some good rebounds, some good defensive minutes. He's not ever going to be the defensive stalwart that you may want, or the plus defensive player that early last year Carson Cooper was showing even, but he's decent at defense, and the upside on the offensive side of the game is something that I think we need to really be exploring a little bit more and trying to come up with ways on how to best utilize, because he was pretty darn fantastic. Ended up with 12 points, I believe 10 rebounds, had a block shot, had hands were active, generating pressures and turnovers and getting up and getting back on defense. So great game from Jackson Kohler. I was really impressed. He had his hands full with Hunter Dickinson, who had a great game per usual against MSU. So it was tough to see the former Michigan standout doing so well against us, but I thought Jackson was the best big by a pretty wide margin. So my second positive takeaway, or my second biggest thing, was that to me, Jace Richardson, he's young, but he's probably the best pure scoring threat we have on the floor right now. I don't know what's going on with Jaden Akins. That was my third takeaway. I don't want to get too negative because he's an immensely talented player. He's one of our best players still, but for whatever reason, he has not quite figured it out yet to start the season. And until he does, we have to find the offensive load to be handled by somebody else. And so far, Jace has looked extremely comfortable doing that. He had a really kind of, I don't know the adjective I'm looking for, but he had a really good 4-point play with about a second or two left in the first half to pull it. Kansas was trying to stretch the lead to double digits and take a pretty sizable halftime lead in, and he was able to drain a three while getting fouled, and he hit the free throw. So it was a big boost going into the half, and that was just kind of the status quo for him. Jace was 3 of 5 from the field, so he was 8 of 12 in his first two games. So he had he was 3 of 5 of the field. He was efficient, and he ended the game with 8 points off the bench. It was a breath of fresh air. Frankie Fiddler was able to generate some offense, but he was not very efficient. He was 3 of 12 on shooting, 1 of, I believe, 6 from the field. Like Emmett had mentioned, Xavier Booker went over 4 from 3, 0 of 5 from the field. Aiken struggles. Jeremy Fears was okay, but he was kind of reserved to more of a distributor, pure point guard type of trying to run the offense than actually being the scoring threat. So with that being said, Jace really did step up, so credit to him. Hopefully that continues and can translate throughout the whole season. I also want to shout out our free throws. So far this season, by and large, have looked a lot better than what they have in the past few years. We went 18 of 21 from the line against Kansas. Overall, I think we're shooting from free throws a lot better and more willing to go to the line, which is going to be needed, especially if we're having issues draining long distance shots. So positive signs. Rebounding was okay. I think we had 43 total rebounds. Like I said, 100.
Got out rebounded like 4, I believe.
Yeah, it was a closer margin. Like I said, Hunter had a game for Kansas, so that
I believe
was a
they had um, the 2 leading rebounders combined for 19 defensive rebounds, which, yeah.
yeah.
Also, quick shout out on the rebounding front. Jackson Kohler had 4 offensive rebounds, which actually led both teams. So
Yes.
Jackson Kohler showing that fight. I know that the head coach of Niagara, Greg Paulus, actually shouted him out in his press conference, saying the way he attacks it is he is acting like he's a defensive player going after the rebound. Sorry, Chris, you can continue. My bad.
No, that was good. That was good add on. But yeah, I thought overall the rebounding was maybe better than I expected. I guess we'll say that. I know we've mentioned a couple times that Hunter had a good game. I'll just give you his stat line just to kind of put it into context, as much as I don't want to talk about him per se. But Hunter Dickinson had 28 points and I believe 12 rebounds total. And he was 13 to 21 from the field and did add a three, played 35 minutes. So he had a really good game for Kansas. And so when having to deal with somebody who's scoring at will and playing that well, it's a tough task. So I thought Jackson did a pretty good job. I thought Carson Cooper was all right. Simone Zavala actually had a decent game too. I was kind of impressed with some of the minutes he was able to provide. So by and large, the bigs played, I think, just better than I thought. And it led to the success. I thought defensively, MSU did some good things. They did do some not so great things, but AJ Storr, the guard who transferred from Wisconsin, who's not a starter for Kansas, but is definitely a quality starting talent. We'll say he at Wisconsin last year famously torched us when we played Wisconsin. AJ Storr fouled out, so he was not having the best game to his standards. He only ended up playing 12 minutes and I believe only had, what was it, 6 points? Yeah, 6 points. Um, so yeah, not a bad game overall. Frustrating to watch when towards the halfway point of the second half, Kansas was reeling a little bit and doing everything they could to hand us the game, and we just didn't seize it. It wasn't lack of effort; shots just weren't falling. In general, I think 24 3-point attempts is probably a little too much for this team any day, whether they're falling or not. So you'd like to see them not maybe settle for his mini threes so much, but to their credit, a little bit of Tyson Walker mentality is that they're eventually going to start falling, and hopefully that's sooner than later. Because if they do start falling consistently, this team could be really good. So
Speaking of players with touch on threes, one thing that kind of surprised me, not necessarily knowing the rotation for Michigan State in general from the first 2 games, but Kurt Tang did not play. The true freshman. Obviously, this was against a higher talent level than the Monmouth and Niagaras of the world. That said, Kurt Tang heading into the game was tied with Trey Howman with 2 made threes as a team leader. He did not play or played in the final minute, I believe.
yeah,
So overall, well, Kurt Tang may be relatively raw and maybe not ready for the Kansases of the world. He is someone who has, been able to find a stroke at 3, and considering the struggle that this team had, I do believe that he is a guy who, if the team has a struggle from 3 consistently throughout the year, we might see more of Kurt Tang. We might see Jace Richardson encouraged to shoot more threes. So it's just something to watch, especially with these true freshmen as they begin to develop into their roles. And with the other coaching, these freshmen, if they can hit their shots in games, you are going to see a lot more playing time from these players in the future, I believe.
yeah, I think so too. And you did start to see Izzo kind of settle into probably his best couple of rotations. And
I
you're
agree.
going to, as the rest of the season starts to unfold, the Kurt Tangs or Garrick Norman or whoever, some of the freshmen or younger players that are going to serve less time are going to get their less minutes. Now you're going to start to see the best 8 probably to 10 rotate in and out a lot more. Minutes were pretty evenly distributed, I would say. Your starters were Fiddler, Booker, Zapala, Fears, and Akins. Obviously, Emmett mentioned Booker getting benched in the second half. kind of led to a cut in his minutes. But we had 6 Spartans play 20 minutes. And then the other 4 that did not were above 12 minutes. So we had a pretty decent rotation coming in. I don't exactly know if we figured out the best 5 to go with consistently. There was a lot of talk, and I had brought it up in discussions about potentially trying to go smaller at times and running with, Xavier Booker maybe at center and getting some looks at moving around Fiddler or Carr at 4 and just trying to run a smaller lineup. That did happen at times, but not a lot. We were still rolling with 2 bigs quite a bit, so it doesn't look like Izzo wants to utilize that as much, which is fine. I think it's just going to be a matter of getting consistent play out of your bigs. You got to consistently get good minutes out of 2 big men to do that sort of lineup. And so far, I don't know if we've seen it. So maybe if it's Jackson Kohler getting more time and more of the starts with either Zapala or, if Booker gets a little less to figure it out, or I don't know how you want to run it, but might be something to see going forward.
Cohen looked, at times, Cohen Carr and his physicality looked like potentially the best 4 on the floor at points for the Spartans during their game. He doesn't really jump out on the box score, but I know post-game Izzo was very complimentary of that. Reading through post-game press conferences, obviously I wasn't able to be down in Atlanta, but I did keep a track of post-game press conferences, what was said. Cohen was shouted out real quick. Additionally, Carson Cooper had a hot start to the game. I believe at the under 16, I believe he was leading the team with 4 points, finished with 6.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so Carson Cooper has occasionally provided that, 2-3 minute stint where he will run the floor for, 2 minutes and then never really be seen from again outside of rebounding the ball. Yeah. So if I know he's not, the raw freshman anymore, if Izzo can maximize Carson Cooper's potential, we don't know really where his floor, where his ceiling is. I think a lot of us are more of the opinion middle floor, lower ceiling, but if Izzo can find a way to get Carson Cooper playing at his ceiling for every minute on the court, I believe that you could see a very good rotational center for when, say, someone like Jackson Kohler needs a break.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you saw it in stretches last year, too, especially towards the end of the season when he was rolling Cooper out more in tournament games early on, or
against Zach Edey, he had a good until he fouled Edey when he broke his nose. Yeah. But I saw that on court. I still don't know how that's a foul. But
yeah, until he committed a foul breaking his nose. So
yeah, he intentionally rammed his nose into Zach Edey's elbow. You were correct.
Yeah, that's so. But hey, if Cooper can put it together for even some consistent times, or even if Zapala gives you good rotational minutes when he's rotating in, then it could be very beneficial to run the 2 bigs and kind of have that. It's just you got to find the right combo, unfortunately, especially with spacing, because it seems like the way Xavier Booker's been struggling, he's been more reliant on trying to drop back and just shoot jump shots from long range or 3. That's cool if it makes, I guess, if the way I want to say it, but when you're not hitting them, then it just gives you even more frustrations because you know how athletically gifted he is and how much of a force he can be. But I do want to shout out Cohen Carr because you did say Izzo was complimentary in this post-press game, and he was. And I thought there were times when Cohen Carr was one of the best players on the floor. He started to show a little bit of willingness to back up a little bit and take some outside jump shots. He even attempted a 3. If he can continue to try to show other teams that he has the capability to make mid-range to long-range jump shots or 3-point shots, he will turn into probably the best 4 we have, and that's even when Xavier Booker is playing at the top of his game, because Cohen Carr's athleticism is off the charts. He's the best athlete we have, and if he can get players to respect him from mid-range and jump, to take jump shots, it just makes it that much easier to turn on him, drive, get to the rim, and draw some mismatch for kickouts and stuff like that. So I like that he was willing to take some jump shots, attempt the 3-pointer. It did not go in, but you shot it. So hey, if you can keep doing that, then that'll only help your game in the long run.
Yeah, I agree, especially because we saw early in the year, whenever Cohen Carr got the ball, 3 or 4 people crashed around the bucket because Cohen Carr's range as a freshman was about 2 to 3 feet, and those 2 to 3 feet are in the air as he's jumping toward the dunk.
Yeah.
So, if he can get teams to respect a mid game, if he can even get a consistent 5, 6 foot shot, he will definitely create a lot more nightmares, and he will definitely be deserving of a ton more playing time.
Yeah.
I know we mentioned the rotations were starting to take place more. I don't believe that will be the case in this upcoming game on Saturday.
Yeah.
This Bowling Green team is not that great. They just got their first win of the year against a lower level opponent. On paper, they're averaging, I believe, 96 points per game, but they've played Davison, where they lost to, and then a couple others. Not anyone major. They're losing their rebounding battle in every game except for their lower level opponent. Additionally, they are averaging like 12 steals per game or something ridiculous, which I don't think this is your MSU basketball team that commits 12 turnovers in a game, let alone the other team gets 12 steals. So I feel confident about it. It's a 98-2 matchup predictor for Michigan State.
Yeah.
I will not be at that game, obviously, as I'll be in Illinois. That said, I'm very excited to get to watch the film on my drive back, as I will be splitting driving duties with Matt. So don't worry, I won't be watching film and driving, but yeah.
Might blend in well with some of the Illinois traffic, I guess. But
You said it.
game time for that. Sorry to any of our Illinois-based listeners there, but game time for Saturday against Bowling Green is 6:00 from the Breslin. That game's going to be on Big Ten Network, and so check that out if you can. In the episode that comes out for our main episode, we also mentioned hockey has 2 games against Notre Dame this weekend, and women's soccer has their NCAA tournament game against Western Michigan on Saturday. So big stuff happening around the campus this weekend. That's going to be about it. I do want to shout out Bowling Green is coming back to campus with one of their coaches being former MSU point guard legend Tum Nairn. So welcome home to Tum. We're excited to have you back in the Brez. Hopefully you don't make it too difficult for us, but it is good to see Tum coming back as his coaching career is kind of starting to take off a little bit. So who knows? Maybe he'll be an assistant coach for Coach Izzo before too long, before he eventually hangs it up. But that's I think that's all we had to cover. Mostly basketball related stuff. Oh no, we had more. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Signing days. Emmett will introduce that, but we had signing days for basketball. Hockey has got some commitments, and then was it baseball signing day was today too, I believe.
Oh, yep. Today, Thursday, was baseball signing day. Also yesterday, Wednesday, was gymnastics signing day in addition to basketball signing. So I'd like to, welcome all the new Spartans who have, agreed to sign their life away for 4 years.
Hopefully.
With the program. I do think that it's a very exciting time around campus with the amount of fantastic hires that all of these programs have had. I do think it is an exciting time to be a Spartan, and you see that reflected with the athletes. Some people are disappointed in the Michigan State recruiting class. That said, with how Jace Richardson has looked early, and the promise that some of our players like Kurt Tang, Jeremy Fears is still counted as a freshman because of the unfortunate accident last year. It is not a huge requirement for the Spartans to be signing the number 1 and number 2 kids in every single class, for example. Additionally, with how the last game played out, you saw people saying, "Are we sure that Booker was that good of a 5-star?" I do think that's a little bit of an extreme reaction. Booker has a ton of talent. It's just getting it to the point where Booker himself can harness it, and I think he will be the first player to say, "Yeah, I did not play a great game." So I do think that it will turn the future. The fortunes will turn for Booker in the future. I think he is a phenomenal player and will prove his worth as I believe like the number 3 kid in his class,
Yeah, I
if I'm not
believe.
mistaken. Additionally, one last shout out for other sports outside of the normal football and basketball that we cover. Uh, Women's volleyball is hosting the school down the road on Friday night. If you're already up on campus and want something to watch, it's going to be Michigan versus Michigan State in volleyball on Friday night.
Yep, big big happenings around campus. I know you or those of you who follow Darian Harris on uh, social media. He had posted he's got tickets to all of the events, and he's going to be popping in and out of games. So it'll be a fun time on campus this weekend. Hockey fans, the duel in the D for this year, tickets do go on sale for that tomorrow. So if you're looking to go check out MSU hockey down at Little Caesars Arena over the holiday breaks, get your tickets tomorrow, I believe morning. I think it's 10 a.m. or noon. Sorry, I forgot the time. But
The
yeah,
tickets also go on sale for the game in Plymouth against a men's development team.
yes, they play the U.S. national team, or national development team. Sorry,
Yeah,
that's actually next weekend, I think, isn't it? That,
yeah. I believe there's some sort of deal going around. Sorry that this was unscripted. If you can't tell, this was a little unscripted by us, but shouting out the other sports, getting them their proper representation.
yes, yeah, and so that's the U.S. I could probably deviate a whole podcast episode to the U.S. National Development Program. So they are doing amazing work. The headquarters down in Plymouth at the old CompuWare Arena. They do great stuff. MSU Hockey plays them. Like I said, I believe it's next weekend. I'm trying to load that as we speak here. But if you are in the CompuWare area or don't mind traveling a little bit for some games, I mean, Plymouth isn't that far from East Lansing. That will be a good thing to check out. You'll have some future MSU commits playing there. Adam Nightingale's had a lot of uh, work with the national development team. He coached there. He developed a lot of players out of that program. He's got really great relationships with everybody there. So it's always a fun thing when we get to play them. And there's some very good, talented hockey players on the up and up coming through there. So if you get some chance, check that out. That's next weekend, November 21st. Sorry, it's a week from today, Thursday, November 21st at 7 p.m. in Plymouth. So, yeah,
It's flying by.
yeah, our dates are all kind of backwards. It's been a crazy week, crazy couple weeks for us, all of us, Zach, Emmett, and I, both with the podcast and outside personal life stuff. So we apologize. We do have the football previews and stuff going up. Hopefully tomorrow, which will be Friday, and then we will upload this basketball recap slash preview. Hopefully Saturday before football and basketball is my hopeful goal. So sorry for the delay and everything. And we'll try to get back on our normal schedule next week to have a Wednesday, Thursday normal episode. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, somewhere in there, and then get you ready before Purdue next Friday in East Lansing, and football season's winding down. We'll also have more of an idea of our basketball schedule, what's going to happen when it just becomes basketball season. We'll let you guys know that as soon as we do, because we don't know that yet either. So that's going to depend on games and medias and work and day jobs and all that other fun stuff. So we appreciate you guys being flexible, sticking with us, and as always, follow us, shout us out, shares, likes, tweets, everything as much as you can. We certainly appreciate all the help. So, Emmett, anything else? We gave Zach a little bit more to edit than what we had bargained for.
Not really. Just excited for this weekend. Gonna be hopefully it's going to be a great day to be a Spartan fan. If all teams can take care of business, that would be phenomenal. If MSU finds a way to go 4-0, 5-0 if you include volleyball, that will be an amazing day, I think, to be a Spartan. Amazing weekend to be a Spartan.
Yep,
I'm glad to
absolutely.
be wearing this polo around.
There you go. That'll be good. Well, yeah, that'll wrap it up for us. We appreciate everybody listening. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, go green.
Go white.